Crypto dough. Now, I created this channel. This is my first episode. I've been studying crypto technology, blockchain technology, anything dealing with tokenization for the last 6 to 7 years. I wanted to share everything that I know about this, but the only thing that I ask for you to do is to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and follow. Now, I wanted to start off with, we're going to dive into, I'm going to show you guys how to use these platforms, it's going to be like an educational platform, how to use these cryptocurrencies, how to transfer it from one wallet to the next, how to transfer it from your hot wallet to your cold wallets, give you the terminology of what's going on, because I understand most people don't understand what's going on. So this is my way of showing you guys everything that I've learned. Now, before I do that, in this first episode, I want to give you some backdrop information about stablecoins, crypto, and this is by Whitney Webb. Now, she's a great journalist, and it goes to show you how crypto itself might be some form of control for the government or XYZ, or maybe for yourself, being that it's part of the blockchain. But why not invest in these things? Because if it's too big, you must join it, right? So why not invest in these things? I'm not going to spend too much time talking. I'm going to get into the video. So let's go.
I think the immigration crises, any sort of refugee situation, that's going to be used to push for digital IDs. I think it's just a very easy excuse for them, a way for them to quickly manufacture consent. Because, all these people, we don't know who they are. They could be criminals. They could be anybody. We have to know who everybody is. And it's going to be sold as a way to provide security to the insecurity created by the migrant crisis. So I think there's been growing awareness for some time that there's a lot of bipartisan consensus about most of the policies of the U.S. government, like endless war, for example.
Now, before she continues, one cryptocurrency, and I don't like to say use the terminology coins, right? Because what you're really investing in is, if you're investing in utility coins, you're investing in utility software. So every time you hear the word coins, ask yourself, well, what is the use case and what is this software used for? It's software. Now, as far as the digital ID, what software wraps around digital ID or product tagging or anything along that nature? One great answer will be HBAR. Hedera hash graph is going to be tagging with the digital IDs, right? I'm going to leave a list of, I'll probably post it on my YouTube channel, a list of a couple of utility coins, or let's cross the word utility coins out, a list of utility software that will make this space that we're about to enter into, right? That will actually create and make this space that we're about to enter into an investment part of your portfolio. Let's continue.
And some people refer to it as the uniparty, but people also forget that too. And so what a lot of people call this, the two-party model, people refer to it sometimes as the left-right paradigm, but I think not a lot of people truly understand how that paradigm works. Mm-hmm. If you think about it as the left hand and right hand of the establishment, you'll have one of those hands create a problem intentionally, and then the opposing hand comes in and offers the solution, but the solution was always what the establishment wanted. But it's sold as a solution to a problem created by the other side. So it creates the illusion that the opposing force solved a problem, but in reality, the problem was manufactured by one hand of the system, and then the solution was offered by the other hand. The man that claims to have created CBDCs is a man from Barbados named Oliver Gale. He created one of the first, arguably the first CBDC project in the Caribbean, and then went on to have a key role in creating the Nigerian CBDC, the e-Naira. So the way the CBDC in Nigeria was set up is that in order to access the CBDC, you have to have a national identification number, which is the Nigerian digital ID project. So you have to have a digital ID in order to be able to access the Nigerian CBDC. And the way they tried to get people to onboard to the CBD system was by...
Now, People may ask, what is CBDC? What is CBDC? So I'm going to stop sharing that screen for 1 second, and we're going to go to the definition screen and show you guys what CBDC is, right? According to Google, I much rather like using ChatGPT or Grok, but we're going to use, for this sake, this first video, we're going to use Google. CBDC stands for Central Bank Digital Currency. So you hear her keep talking about, can you guys see that on the screen? Let me enlarge the screen a bit. Let me zoom in on the screen. Can you guys see that a bit clearer? CBDC. You guys can read along with me as well. CBDC stands for Central Bank Digital Currency, which is a digital form of money issued by a central bank. CBDCs are also known as digital fiat currency or digital based money. Now you hear Whitney, or let's just say Mrs. Webb. She keeps talking about digital ID. Now, in order for you to access your CBDC, right, your digital fiat currency, your digital based money, right, you need an ID, because that ID would then tag you to the money in every transaction that you do, every deposit, anything dealing with transactions. It will be recorded on the blockchain. It will be recorded on the blockchain. And it's the reason why they call it blockchain, for a reason, because everything is entangled. Everything is attached to one another. You can see it in real time. You can see what you spent, where you spent it, how you spend it, what your remaining balance left, all those things. So let's continue with the video. And we're doing this, we're recording this live. So there's no edit that's going on. I like to record my videos live. There's no edit that's going on, so you guys can get a taste of, it's nothing like the real thing. Some videos I'm going to edit, but most of the videos I like to record live.
Essentially cutting off the vast majority of the cash in circulation in Nigeria. And so despite the fact that they created these conditions to coerce people into using the CBDC, the populace resists. And that suggests that the idea of CBDCs being a tool for financial inclusion, the public doesn't seem to believe that, right? In Nigeria, these people that ostensibly suffer from this identity gap, that suffer from financial exclusion, don't want the financial inclusion.
Now we're going to look up what financial inclusion is. But before I do that, I want to share another screen of what blockchain technology is, right? I'm going to share another screen on what blockchain technology is. Let me know if you guys can see the screen. I'm just going to read a definition real quick. A system in which a record of transactions, especially those made in cryptocurrency, is maintained across computers that are linked in a peer-to-peer network. And a peer-to-peer network meaning me to you directly. No middleman. The only middleman that we have is the person that's logging and or the computing engine or machine that's logging these things, which is considered the blockchain technology, right? So that's what blockchain is. Let's read it one more time. A system in which a record of transactions, especially those made in cryptocurrency, is maintained across computers that are linked in a peer-to-peer network. We can then go back to the video. Once again, I'm doing this live, so bear with me for a second. And we're now here.
That they're being offered by the CBDC. They don't see any real benefit. They see it as a tool of the state, and the state in Nigeria and in other African countries where these sort of systems are being rolled out. The governments have abused these systems to go after journalists or other people and violate human rights and all sorts of things. So it's not a tool for increased human rights. It's not a tool for increased inclusion. It's inherently exclusionary, and it's a surveillance tool. So if Nigeria's tactic of, drastically reducing the amount of cash in circulation didn't work, then I think it's quite clear that the way to force onboarding of the CBDC is going to be some sort of crisis, some sort of event where people will be made an offer they can't refuse.
Offer like cyber attacks? That may be a thing. But before we continue, I would like to go on with another definition. You're going to hear this word in this space a lot, and it's called financial inclusion, right? So we must say, hey, well, what is financial inclusion? Financial inclusion, we're going to read the definition. Let me know if you guys can see the definition. Financial inclusion. Financial inclusion is the idea that everyone should have access to financial products and services that are affordable, useful, and meet their needs. It also includes access to information that helps people make informed financial decisions. So basically, that's financial inclusion. Let's read a little more. Access. Having access to financial products and services like bank accounts, credit, and digital payments. So that's where CBDC comes in. That's where your digital ID comes in, right? And this is where this is the path that the future is taking. It's right around the corner. Let's just say by 2030, we all should be somewhat on board with this, just because this is part of the system, part of the infrastructure that they're currently building. Affordability, being able to access financial services at a reasonable cost. Safety, having access to financial services that are safe and secure. Education, having access to financial information and education to help people learn how to use financial products and avoid scams. Financial inclusion is important because it can help people build wealth, foster financial security, and close the racial wealth gap. For example, having a savings account can help people curb impulse spending, manage their cash, and save money safely. Basically, they want all your money to be tracked. And like I say, why not invest in the technologies that's building these spaces and the software that's actually building these spaces out? You have XRP, XDC, you have XCN, you have Edge, you have Block V, you have HBAR, you have Algorand, just to name a few. And I'm going to break all of these down. And I'm going to do separate videos on all of these. Like I say, this is my first video. It's going to get better each and every time. And I'll also have a product that I'm going to do, probably a PDF file, a starter kit to let you guys know what to look out for, maybe what to park your money in, but not financial advice. And, how to navigate the space, because this is a new space for all of us, right? Also, they're going to have something, gaming and all that other things coming along too in this space as well. So everyone will be entertained, will be engaged at all the way. Now let's get back to the video. I'm gonna let her go on for a second before I think I got through a lot of definitions that I wanted to get through. So let's go on.
Essentially, whatever that crisis is that creates the situation where people will have, very little choice but to onboard to this new digital currency system, it could manifest in a number of ways. But regardless of how it manifests, what the narrative is going to be is that privacy is dangerous, anonymity is dangerous, specifically financial privacy is dangerous. Those are going to be the narratives that come out of this event, and that's going to be a way to force onboarding both onto digital currency that can be tracked to stop terror financing or things of that nature. And also, we have to know who everybody online is, or we have to know who everybody is interacting with these systems. We need digital ID. Okay. It's very much tied up with efforts to regulate the internet. The effort to regulate the internet, specifically in the United States, has been going on for years. Under the Obama administration, they called it the driver's license for the internet. The idea is to have a government-issued ID be necessary for you to access the internet. And in doing so, they know not just what you're posting and saying online, they know what information you're reading online as well. But the difference is, once it's directly connected to a government-issued ID, they could prosecute you for things like publishing misinformation and all of that. And there's actually been pushes from people like former Google CEO Eric Schmidt to punish people who publish alleged disinformation, and that the need that it's necessary to have IDs connected to social media accounts and to people's internet access as a means of facilitating those kinds of arrests.
So the thing would then be, right, Are we headed to a place where we have to do social credit scores? Maybe a social credit system just like they have in China? Because these things are already happening, but they have not made way to the USA yet. We all know that Trump is president. He's going to get inaugurated in, let's just say, under 10 days. And this may be the rollout plan for that as well. And if you can pay a ticket, or if you don't pay your tickets, or if you walk across the street and let's just say hypothetically you jaywalk, they can track you on that. So it has its plus and it has its minuses as well. But like I say, why not invest in the technology that's actually creating this infrastructure in this space as we speak? Let's continue.
Arrests or, law enforcement activity. Well, there's a couple of reasons why I think they'd want to have private banks have like a major role in this digital currency system to come. If there's a private sector entity banking you and managing your money, it's much easier for them to bank you than the federal government. So for example, if the Federal Reserve were to do a direct issue CBDC, it would be harder for them to freeze someone's bank account or debank them in any sort of significant way, as opposed to a private company where you have, for example, precedents where JP Morgan Chase, for example, debanked Dr. Mercola and some of his executives and didn't give any reason as to why. They just said, we can no longer provide you with financial services. No questions asked. That would be very.
Now, this is not good. This is why I state this. And this is also why you need to have a cold wallet or anything along that nature, right? And I'm going to let you guys know what a cold wallet is. It's basically a wallet that's offline. Hot wallet means that you have access to it online. Cold wallet means that it's in this cold storage. You don't have access to it until you plug it into your computer, right? Which can be very safe. So you guys remember when the truckers, they was going on a strike? And they decided, the United States government decided to ban or freeze their account. Same thing they did with Andrew Tate. They don't like the fact that he's speaking out against the government, and he has his own things going on, right? But the fact that the government said, you know what, let's freeze all his assets, let's freeze all his accounts, and he can no longer bank with a banking institution because he come up as a red flag. You see, so it's kind of a way of silencing someone without having a reason to. So that can be the negative side effect of it, right? Because it's total control. It's all about control. And we know with power, people love control. Let's continue. Now, I'm all for the space. I like the good things about the space, but I'm also here to tell you the cons as well, because there's no point of speaking about the good if you can't equip the people and just be real and transparent and say, hey, we're walking into something, but be careful. And it's other technologies that you can use to bypass these things as well.
Very hard to do in the case of a direct issued CBDC. This is something similar to the argument that's been made for social media companies censoring. They say, oh, but they're private companies, so they can restrict speech however they want. But we know now that their restrictions on private speech have been a result of public sector pressure, right? So again, people need to keep in mind that this is a public-private partnership. That's the prevailing model in the United States. The digital dollar in the United States is also going to be a public-private model. You'll have the Fed, the central bank, working with the private banks that own the Fed in the United States. And that will be the partnership between them will be the system. It's not going to be all public. It's not going to be all private. It is a partnership.
In the next 60 seconds, I'm going to show you how to naturally control.
And that makes sense. It's like the left hand and the right hand analogy that she was giving us earlier about the political party that they solve each other's problem. And I totally agree. Now, also, because I give credit when credit's due, I left the link to this video because we're not going to watch the whole thing, but I left the link to the video in the description. So feel free to go go visit this page and give him a shout out, like, subscribe to his channel as well, because it's a community that we're building and we're all for real information. Let's continue.
Were to do a direct issued CBDC, it would take them a few years to design, experiment, and deploy it. If you're using these existing dollar peg stable coins, those are already here. They're already on blockchains. And a lot of those phases that would take the Fed a few years have already been accomplished if you choose to use those. And if you regulate them so that they have to, for example, keep their reserves at the Fed, then you're able to sort of have the same kind of system, but you don't have to go through the process of creating a direct issued CBDC. China, for example, they already have their CBDC. So the US is behind. So to remain competitive, they say, and have a first mover advantage, we should go with the digital dollars that are already here. So that's dollar peg stable coins. The banks that are involved in this new system, it's very unlikely it's going to be the existing banks we have in the US right now. And that's because just like in 2008 and more recently with the Silicon Valley banking crisis, every time there's a major financial crisis, there seems to be a major bank consolidation wave. And you have Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, saying during the Silicon Valley bank crisis, in front of Congress, that they are essentially only going to rescue systemically important banks, which is a designator that Yellen can just, she essentially decides who's a bank worth saving and who's not. And this is sort of the perpetuation of the too big to fail model that we heard about in 2008. So one indication the system is being rolled out in this way is looking at the people developing the infrastructure and what type of digital currencies they're supporting. So one of the biggest developers right now of CBDCs is this company called R3 that's backed by some of the biggest Wall Street banks in the world. And they were named by Central Banking Magazine as the CBDC Partner of the Year last.
Now, R3, because I do my homework, I do my research, that's linked to XDC. That's a crypto software that you should definitely look into. But like I say, this is my first video on this channel. So I'm going to further do more videos on the crypto technologies and the crypto software that I believe will run the future, and it's going to be highly profitable, but not financial advice.
Last year. And then they're developing a litany of CBDCs for countries all around the world. But that's just one part of what they do. They have this thing they call a digital currency accelerator. And the three types of digital currencies R3 develops are CBDCs, stable coins, and tokenized deposits or deposit tokens. And some banks in the US have already rolled out deposit tokens. Citigroup, JP Morgan. JP Morgan actually had a research paper out last year about how CBDCs are inferior to deposit tokens and how deposit tokens are better. So Oliver Gale, who defines himself as the founder of CBDCs, has more recently co-founded a company called Fluent Finance. What Fluent Finance is they attempt to create a trustworthy dollar peg stablecoin that they call US Plus. And it's sort of framed as an answer to dollar peg stablecoins like Tether that have been controversial for having opaque reserves. So the whole thing about US Plus is having trackable reserves in real time and all of this. And so it's an attempt to create a very extremely trustworthy and backed by a consortium of banks, a bank-led US dollar peg stablecoin. So if the inventor of CBDCs is moving into stablecoins, he probably knows that there's something there.
Right.
So what first got you interested in this cyber pandemic?
So not that long after the COVID, era began and the World Economic Forum started to be looked at, scrutinized more, particularly by independent media. People had noticed the overlap between the World Economic Forum and Event 201, for example, in the COVID crisis. And so during the COVID crisis, people paid a lot of attention when the World Economic Forum launched its cyber polygon simulations that were about cyber attacks. And during that same period of time, you had Klaus Schwab, the best known face of the World Economic Forum, saying that after COVID, there would be some sort of what he called a cyber pandemic that would have consequences that would make COVID's impact on society seem relatively insignificant by comparison.
Listen,
I think the whole idea of a cyber attack is sort of contradictory to a lot of the stuff that was pushed for during the COVID era, where we were pushed increasingly out of the physical world into the digital world. And then the digital world is also under attack from cyber attacks and what have you. So I think ultimately the goal is to use cyber attacks as a means of centralizing control of the digital world.
And based on these like simulations, you think it's going to come in the form of like a false hacker attack, or who's going to be the villain in this scenario?
Yeah. So one thing that gets overlooked a lot with Cyber Polygon and some of these other related simulations about coming cyber attacks is that they seem to involve the big banks. And some of them even involve central banks. There's a major theme of banking here, which I think has been unfortunately overlooked. And it sort of implies that one of these cyber attacks of the cyber pandemic will be on the financial system to some degree. So, for example, if you look at Cyber Polygon, it was the WEF, but it was done in partnership with Russia's largest bank, Sberbank, and was one of the opening speakers of it was the Russian prime minister and things like that, which is in direct contrast, for example, to the supposed Russian hacker narrative that's been propagated extensively in U.S. mainstream media. The U.S. government had no problem and no criticism participating in Cyber Polygon, and no criticism of the WEF for co-hosting their cyber simulation cyber attack simulation with the supposed hackers at large that supposedly interfered in the U.S. elections.
They said that they did that?
Well, okay, so in 2016 and 2020, there were a lot of, narratives propagated by U.S. mainstream media about Russian hackers, and none of those mainstream media outlets criticized the WEF for doing their big cyber attack simulation in partnership with the Russian government.
Oh, they did it with the Russian government.
Yeah, Cyber Polygon was the WEF and a subsidiary of Sberbank, Russia's largest privately owned bank, and also the Russian prime minister gave like the opening remarks, and it was affiliated to some degree with the Russian government. Yeah. So there's been a few entities besides the WEF that have sort of gamed out these cyber attack simulations in a very significant way. One of them is the Financial Services ISAC, or Information Sharing and Analysis Center, which is essentially the biggest private banks in the United States coming together to share information and plan shared responses to potential crises, including a cyber attack on the financial system. And FSISAC is affiliated to an extent with the WEF and also with the Carnegie Endowment. And the Carnegie Endowment has similarly charted out potential solutions if and when there is a major cyber attack on the financial system. And they did so in partnership with the Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, and some of the biggest private banks in the world like JP Morgan Chase.
Okay, this is the automatic course creator. And if you are
Now that was great information. I'm gonna let this video run because I don't want to interrupt, because she speaks
your first
volume with so much volume. Let's go.
Their proposed solution is to merge banks, banking regulators, and intelligence agencies as far as information sharing and analysis goes. So that's essentially having banks share your private transaction data directly with the CIA or any other U.S. intelligence agency that asks.
Just kind of like a digital fusion center, an updated version of it.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, doing so is inherently unconstitutional. People would not consent to that if it were not for a major crisis that affects the banking sector.
Yeah.
Oftentimes they try and pilot these solutions before they're actually implemented. And if there isn't sufficient onboarding or uptake by the public, invariably an event comes along that creates fear and panic among the public to a very significant degree. And they begin clamoring for solutions to this problem that's causing the fear and panic. And the solution is often something that's been tested or pitched years prior. One example of this is, the Obama administration tried to make a driver's license for the internet, directly link your government issued ID to your online activity. And now we're seeing a push to do the same under the guise of stopping misinformation or stopping cybercrime and things like that. It's mainly coming from US, UK, and Israeli intelligence and the big banks through entities like the World Economic Forum's Partnership Against Cybercrime, for example.
You basically think that that's going to be, this could be the great taking catalyst, or you just see a series of events that'll erode people's rights or what?
The cyber attack seems like a very possible scenario because it's a way for the banks to absolve themselves of any role in a financial crisis. It's an easy way to consolidate banks so that only systemically important ones survive the hack. And it could also potentially be a very effective means of onboarding people onto this new digital currency paradigm. So, for example, let's say this cyber attack on the banks takes place, and they say, well, the existing money in your account has disappeared. The hackers took it, but we can return to you the exact same amount of money you had, but it won't be in the dollars you had before. It will be in USDC or this dollar-backed stablecoin, or it will be this token. So you can get an equivalent amount of money back, right, from the money that was stolen from you, but it has to be this new money. It has to be part of this new system. There's the potential here for people to steal money from you and then essentially give it back to you, but with new conditions and with a new like social contract.
I'm going to leave it right there. Feel free to watch the remaining of the video. This is my first one that I'm going to upload. So she introduced you guys to digital. Her name is Whitney Webb, and she introduced you guys to the digital aspect of the digital ID, which is, that's what they're pushing for now. She also introduced you to the CBDC and what that means, and how CBDC and digital ID is one of the gateways to actually being able to be a part of this new system, this new infrastructure that's being built. I wanted to bring you guys that info. Crypto Dough, once again, I appreciate everyone. Don't forget to subscribe, like. I want to at least drive this to 1 million. Let's just say 5 million followers. So that's the aim. Help me get there, and I will make sure that I add value to this channel. I will make sure I add value to you and this channel. And I also, too, I might show you some of my trades or some of my wallets, so you guys will know that I'm in it. I'm in it to win it. Have a beautiful day.